Hello, hello, my Facebook friends. How are you? Heather Ramos coming to you from Eugene, Oregon. I know it might be kind of interesting because I haven't been around. It seems like I'm missing in action, but I am back in Oregon. I did make it back earlier this week, back from Dallas and all the craziness that was going on with the weather. It was like Utah and then Dallas and then coming back here and just getting swamped by people and messages and, asking questions and telling me there's been a lot of yuck going on like we always talk about, right? But this nationwide winter storm just made it that much worse, right? On so many people, including me. I am not exempt from that. I tell you guys all the time that I personally am, combating naturally every single day. I'm not cured. So whenever I come back from trips for a while, sometimes I got to take some time just to whoosha for myself. If you're feeling the weather, drop me a 1 because, right, it's like hard to ignore it right now because it feels like a barometric pressure gauge for many of us. But for me, because I do have lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, and the fact that I do what I do, which is, I don't necessarily consider it work. I like to believe that, I'm trying to create hope, inspiration, do something great in people's lives, give them opportunity and just realizing that, right, that our lives can be so different. So I followed my own advice this last few days because it was just kind of crazy coming back from that storm, everything going on. So as you're popping in, say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. But I was busy. And so if you could actually look around my home right now, my ex just came by to pick up my son and he's like, whoa. And I was like, right? Because he was bringing over a bed. I'm like, this is how mama does it when she's ready to. It's like huge spring cleaning. It's not even spring yet, but I'm like, let's out with the old, in with the new. But I was thinking about it as I was picking up stuff and because I did. So for those of you who followed me for a long time, you guys know that the reason I went on this huge health journey is because I am a super sick person, right? So in a 6-month period, we were like victims of a hate crime. My mom died, and then I got divorced, and my whole life got changed. And so what I ended up doing was going ahead and deciding that I was going to take at least a year to kind of let the dust settle, try to figure out my life, in this new journey that I was brought to. And so without making any like sudden movements, right? So if you know what I'm talking about, give me a 2, like me too, like you know what I'm talking about, right? Sometimes we got to take just some time. And so during this time, I've been like changing all these people's lives. I've been, reinventing myself and my identity and like who I want to be now because I've been sick. Very different for me because being sick my whole adult life, right? So, as I was picking up the house today, I was teasing my kids because my aunt had told me a long time ago that my uncle had a belief that if you didn't use something inside of 6 months, it was like donated or it had to go or you had to sell it. And I was laughing because I'm like, the 6 months isn't very long. Like, there's some things I put on that, maybe it's like cookies, or my baking stuff that I use maybe during the holidays. And that stuff would be gone if I followed that rule, So I was going through my son's room today and I was thinking maybe I need to implement that rule because there's some stuff in here that you don't even remember you have, and I kind of just put everything on a freeze when we moved after the divorce because I didn't want to like uplift his surroundings so much. It was already hard enough, so I wanted to make sure he kept all his stuff around so it felt like home for him and, but now I tell you guys, whether we choose to help guide the process or whether it happens naturally on our own, we're going to evolve. Things are going to keep evolving. Our lives are going to evolve. And so I have been trying to hold on to it as much as I can as I'm going in the direction that I hope that God is pulling me to and the light that he's, shining and directing me towards. And so all these things have been changing. I am was considering moving to Dallas. Just all this stuff, right? But I was just kind of, I joke around, my accounting side came out. I don't like to take calculated risks, or I take calculated risks, right? So I was just kind of letting everything kind of settle, figure out what I wanted to do. So as I was going through the house today, of course, now I went to the opposite side. I'm like, all right, bud, it's been about 1.5 years now. So we're going to go through and I'm getting the black bag out and the boxes to donate. We're getting rid of everything. And my son's like, wait a minute, and I'm like, okay, maybe not that extreme, right? But I was thinking about part of my mind shift of that is because I tell you guys all the time, I try to reflect on my life and what's going on and making sure that what was good for me yesterday is still good for me today and that I'm continuing to go down the path that I need to go down to make sure that I am trying to be the best version of myself. And the thing is that sometimes we get so comfortable with where we're at in our comfort zones that we think, oh, this is good enough, but we don't try to go beyond that. Or maybe we don't try to make new goals, or we don't try to envision a different life, or maybe we can see it in the distance and we know that there's things that we'd like to do differently in our lives, but we're not exactly taking any steps to get there, right? Kind of like when I used to joke around, I'm like, okay, I still doing my crunches, so I can say I'm a person who does crunches, but like me complaining and saying, oh, I wish I had abs, but then I don't do anything about it. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's a relationship thing and you're like, gosh, I wish I was a better spouse or a better parent or whatever it is, right? So I was going through this week as I've been getting my squishy love on with my babies, all my babies, my grandbabies, my babies. And, and I was listening and kind of reflecting about the things that I was sharing with them with different things that were going on, different aspects of their lives. And some of the things, come along the line of spring cleaning, changing, evolving, changing our lives, right? Moving into the new ourselves, making sure we're doing the steps to always be bettering ourselves each day. Also, what happens sometimes is when we're bettering our lives and becoming the better version of ourselves, sometimes people don't like that. Sometimes it's a little intense for people because they feel like maybe they don't remember who we are because we're changing so much, which is necessarily not a bad thing, because sometimes we're changing as somebody that they've never seen before because we've never been this person before. You know what I mean? And so as long as you're like in the right place in your mindset and your heart, and that you're trying to unlock what you were made for, what you were created for, then that's great. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's going to be hard. So you're going to have people that don't understand. You're going to have people that try to sling mud at you. You're going to have people that tell you, well, when did you get all hoity-toity? All kinds of things can come out. Sometimes you're going to have people just cheering you on the sidelines, being like, yeah, hell yeah, because you're creating inspiration and hope that they too can change their circumstances, whatever it is, right? So as I was having these discussions with my kids and just kind of reflecting, I'm always trying to better myself as a human being, especially as a parent or a leader or a role model in our family. And, I was talking to my kids one time. I said, there's stuff that happens in our lives, and they're like, how is it that you're okay with that? Like, how did you forgive that? Because there's some things that, like, Mom, I haven't forgiven in my life, and you're just like okay with it. But and I explained to my kids, I said, part of actually being sick for so long was that I go through phases, like where I went through like the really sick stage where I was mad. I felt unhappy with what was going on in my life. I felt like it gave me a reason that if I wanted to lash out, that was my right because I was sick and that everyone didn't understand. I went through phases of devastation because when it like sunk in, it's like feelings of grief, right? Because you go through all these emotions, right? And so it was like, I've been there. I've been the person who's extra genuine because I understand what it feels like to be there. I was the person who was angry because I was there, so all these emotions, I said, and everything that's ever happened in my life, I chose it one way or another. Some things we can't control that happens to us, but we can choose how we respond to it, right? But most of the things that happen in my life are things that I wanted at one point in my life. And so I chose that. So I can't be angry about the choices I made when I was making them. Maybe in some hindsight, it's always 2020. We're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? But so I was telling him, I said, so even though I opt to forgive, that is something I do for my own personal sanity and health, because being angry, like, don't get me wrong, I tell you all the time, like, you see great passion comes great, fury, and I can get super savage when I have to be, or if something happens to my kids. But in the end of the day, as I was explaining to my kids, is that I still want to go back to remembering that I pray for my enemies. I know that God is going to go ahead and he's going to create a feast for me in front of all of those who doubted or flung dirt or did stuff as I was trying to be my best version of myself that he made me to be, and that, when I opt to forgive, it's not about that person. It's about my own personal sanity, because it takes so much emotion. It affects your immune system, like being angry all the time and the way it feels. Like, I don't like the way it feels. If you know what I'm talking about, give me a high five, right? Because it takes so much more energy to be angry all the time that it's draining. And so I was explaining to them, I said, don't get me wrong, there's people who've earned it and that, that's how it's going to be. But I was like talking to my kids and even my son, because he was telling me about this and that, just different things in their lives, right? So as I was cleaning up the house and going through and weeding out some things that we don't necessarily need anymore, and explaining to my son why he doesn't need to be a hoarder, I was explaining that, that happens in all aspects of our life. And it doesn't just have to happen during spring cleaning time. That every so often it's good for us to reflect and figure out what's going on in our lives, because sometimes we let people in that maybe shouldn't be in there. Maybe it's because during vulnerable states in our time, there's people that come in our lives for a season, a reason, and a lifetime. And I'm just as guilty. Like, I've held on because I want to try to see the goodness in everybody, that I hold on to that diamond in the rough, because I know that maybe if we just love them a little more, if we just understand them a little bit more, that things could change. But sometimes in order for us to evolve and elevate up into the next step in our lives, whether it be in our jobs and our relationships and our lives, whatever it is, right? You can fill in the gap with whatever. sometimes we have to be prepared for that when we're praying for God to make change in our lives, that he's going to come and he's going to wipe some things away that maybe we didn't want him to wipe away. But it's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Like, and you're wondering what's happening. And the thing is that you're praying for change, but then when the change comes, you don't exactly want to like embrace it, which I get, right? Because I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the change I was talking about, So as I was explaining to my kids, that sometimes with that change comes accepting that you're gonna, that when and it was funny because right after I thought about that, Louise Hayes is somebody I really like to go to. I tell you guys, I believe in affirmations, prayer, self-development, meditation, because it's a holistic approach, right? Mind, body, soul. So Louise Hayes is somebody I really like. And so I was reading one of her daily affirmations today, and it was, I will read it to you. It says, I forgive everyone in my past for all perceived wrongs. I release them with love. Now, being me, I'm like, I don't know about releasing them with love, but but in honesty, that's what I was trying to explain to my kids, is that there's going to be people who come along in our lives and situations and times where we need to pause and take a year to reflect before we make our next move. There's going to be times that we need to act swiftly because it's not in our best benefit to leave something toxic in there floating around and that we got to get rid of it one way or another. There's going to be days that we're not ready to let go of something, but God knows what's best for us. And so he's going to come in and he's going to wipe it away, and we don't understand why, but we just have to keep the faith that, okay, it was probably for my best intention. He probably heard conversations I didn't hear, saw things that were being done that I didn't see, and that he sees it all. So he knows what everyone's intentions are. And the thing is that we are given freedom of choice. So even though we all want to be the most godly version of ourselves, and we're trying to, I'd like to hope to be, that sometimes things get away from us or we make choices that aren't the best things. And so he sees all that. So even though people may be a reason, a season, or a lifetime person, we're evolving constantly. And if we're praying and we're trying to get right in our life and we're trying to do what we need to be doing, he's going to start removing things strategically out of our life and aligning us in the path that we need to be on. And so as I was explaining to my son why we can't be hoarders and getting rid of everything, as I said, that's in all aspects of our life, that we have to make room and clean out things, old habits, old relationships, things that are not allowing us to elevate up into the next portion of our lives. And sometimes we don't want to do that, but we have to. And maybe it has to do with something that gives us that yuck feeling. And part of, of forgiving someone doesn't necessarily mean that you have to forget what they did. It just means that you're giving yourself the grace to be okay and say, I'm okay with this now. I'm okay with these circumstances. It may have not turned out the way I liked it, but that's okay. And I feel like that as we're evolving as human beings, and as I'm going through my health journey, as I'm learning who the new me is, that these are things and lessons that I have to learn, but not only for myself, so that I can teach my own kids that, there's going to be people that come in your life that he's going to wipe out because they may have been there maybe they're their milk for a while, nurturing you back to where you needed to be, but they're not intended to be the meat in the rest of your life. And so he's going to wipe them away. And so, as much as we want to hold on, we have to walk by faith sometimes and not by sight, because we can't see the bigger picture. We can't even sometimes understand the whole bigger picture. And so as I was walking around, I can't just do things, mindlessly. They always have to get deep, because I got that time, I'm talking candid to God. Hey, what's happening? Am I on the path I'm supposed to be on? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing right now? Do I need to slow down? Do I need to speed up? Do I need to make change? These are conversations that are happening. If you talk candid and have conversations with God, talk in the comments so that I know that I'm not the only one over here being like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And so I hope that spoke to one of you guys. I know there's a lot going on right now, as always. I mean, right? There's always something, whether it be political, pandemic, relationship-wise, or just everything, right? Sometimes I just feel like it's a season, as I talk to so many people, that there's just so much going on. And so I hope that during all your reflections, maybe you don't reflect as often as I do, but as you're reflecting, that maybe you're making sure to not mourn the loss of some of the things that are happening in your life that were meant for the better of you, that you just haven't seen yet. You know what I mean? And so I just felt like that needed to be spoken to someone. So if that was you, say that was me, Heather. But otherwise, if not, I hope you guys are having a fabulous week so far. And I'm sorry I've been missing in action. I've been responding to people as fast as I can, but I got to secure my own mask before I can secure others. And because I'm not healed, I need to make sure that I take the time to get my mental health in check, to get my spirit aligned, to get all of me on board, because when I whether it be my health, because the weather gets all rocky, it's going to affect my mental portion. If my mental portion gets rocky, it's going to affect my immune system. It's holistic, mind, body, soul. And if I'm not right with somebody upstairs, or I'm holding on to something that I shouldn't be, then it's going to throw everything out of alignment as well. And so whatever your belief system is, holistic approach, mind, body, soul. Sometimes spring cleaning isn't just during the spring. You got to reflect and make sure that everything that you're aligning has a purpose. Not saying that you're using people kind of purpose, but that it has a reciprocated purpose in your life, that you are being a blessing to somebody and they're being a blessing to you. Because otherwise, takers, they're going to keep taking. They don't know the boundaries. And givers, unfortunately, are going to keep giving if they don't realize the boundary as well. So anyways, guys, I hope that spoke to you. If, like I said, if it was for you, say it's for me. Otherwise, just say hi where you're tuning in from. And I hope you guys have a fabulous weekend. God bless.